Someone call security. There's a dog in the ER. The shout snapped through the sterile hallway like a whip. Nurses turned. A man dropped his coffee. The automatic doors hadn't even fully closed before a large German shepherd burst through them, snarling, soaked from the rain, and dragging something small and limp by the collar in his mouth. But it wasn't a toy. It wasn't trash. It was a child, and she was bleeding. The emergency room at Ridgeway General was rarely quiet, but in that moment, silence collapsed like a wave. All eyes locked on the soaking wet K9 dog, battered vest still strapped to his chest. His fur streaked with blood, both old and fresh. The girl he carried couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her hair matted, her feet bare. There were scratches on her face and dried blood under her nose. She wasn't crying, but her eyes were open, wide, terrified, and locked on the ceiling as if she were afraid to blink. The dog, panting hard, set her gently down on the nearest gurney and let out a deep, low bark. Then another and another. The barks weren't random. They were a demand. "Get someone in here now," a nurse shouted, scrambling toward the child. Where the hell did this dog come from? The chaos that followed blurred into action. Doctors wheeled her into trauma. A security guard followed the dog down the hall, and half the staff whispered, "How did a dog bring a child in here alone? No ID, no adult, no car in the parking lot. Just a K9 dog and a bleeding little girl delivered to the hospital lobby like something out of a horror film." This wasn't just strange, it was impossible. Rocky, the dog in question, wasn't chipped. Not according to the hospital scanner. Anyway, but someone had clearly taken care of him at some point. The faded police K9 patch still hung crooked from his old harness, though his coat was worn and patchy around the edges. The girl, on the other hand, was a complete unknown. No wallet, no phone, no paperwork. Just a single word whispered through cracked lips as they carried her into the ER. Safe. That was it. She passed out seconds later. One of the nurses, Carla, knelt beside the gurney as they rolled her into the trauma room. She looked at the strange dog still trotting beside them. He didn't whimper, didn't panic, just stared straight ahead like a soldier on a mission. "She knows this dog," Carla murmured to herself. "And I think he knows her." Rocky sat outside their doors for nearly an hour, unmoving. Anytime someone passed too close, he gave a warning growl, not aggressive, just protective. "He's guarding her," one of the nurses whispered, "like he's still on duty. But who trained him, and where was he from?" It wasn't until Officer Grant from the local precinct arrived that someone recognized him. "Wait a minute," Grant said, staring at the monitor that showed the dog curled by the door. "I know that dog." "You do?" Carla asked, stunned. "That's Rocky. K9 unit retired. Was reported missing 6 months ago after a house fire. His handler, Officer Daniels, died trying to save some kids from a lab fire out by Redmore Pines. Official report said Rocky was never found. But he's here, and he brought that girl," Carla said. "Why would he come back now?" Officer Grant's face went pale. "That house that burned down," he said slowly. "They said it had underground rooms. Emily," the girl's name, was finally discovered after she woke briefly to murmur it. She had been missing for at least a year. No school records, no birth certificate, no CPS file. She wasn't on any list, but the marks on her arms and legs told a darker story. Old needle bruises, scars around her ankles, trauma in her eyes that no child should carry. "She's not just injured," the attending doctor whispered during a debrief. "She's been held somewhere hidden, and somehow this dog had found her. Not only that, he'd gotten her out. If you're as shocked and moved by what this heroic dog just did as we were, don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals. Every week we bring you true stories of the brave, the selfless, and extraordinary animals who change lives forever. Click that button and be part pack." Later that evening, hospital security reviewed the footage. Rocky appeared on camera just once before entering, walking alone in the storm, dragging a piece of cloth in his mouth, a ragged blanket clinging to Emily's shoulders. His steps were tired but determined, like he'd been walking for miles. And he had. A blood trail found outside confirmed it. Authorities followed it 2 miles through backwoods and overgrown trails to a drainage tunnel. Inside, they found something chilling, a cage, empty now but freshly disturbed. Scratches on the walls, child-sized footprints in the mud, and what looked like makeshift restraints scattered across the floor. Rocky had broken into the place. He hadn't stumbled on Emily by accident. He knew exactly where to go. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Emily finally opened her eyes. The first thing she said, "Where's Rocky?" He was there, sitting just outside the glass. The nurse opened the door, and Rocky trotted in, wagging his tail gently, head low. Emily sat up, bruised and bandaged, and placed both hands on the sides of his face. "You came back," she whispered. Rocky whined softly, then laid his head in her lap. It was the first time she smiled. That night, Officer Grant called in a full investigation. Wherever she came from, he told his team, we're going to find it. And if Rocky could do this much on his own, just imagine what we can do together. But even as they prepared to track down the dark place Emily had escaped from, the town was already abuzz with a bigger question. If a dog could see what no one else did, why didn't we? Emily didn't sleep that night. The doctors had sedated her just enough to calm her trembling limbs, to ease her heartbeat back into something steady. But even with the soft beeping of hospital monitors and the comforting light of a night nurse reading by the door, her eyes stayed open. And Rocky stayed by her side, not at the foot of the bed, not curled up in a corner, but standing, back straight, ears alert, one paw always touching the side of the mattress, like a soldier keeping watch. No one dared to move him. Every time a nurse tried to shift him away to clean the sheets or check vitals, Rocky would let out a low growl. Not violent, just firm, protective, territorial. The message was clear. She's mine to guard. And honestly, no one argued. Outside the room, Officer Grant stood by the nurse's station, staring down at a fresh stack of reports. The video footage, photos from the drainage tunnel, blood samples, that single strip of cloth torn from Emily's makeshift blanket, soaked in both mud and something darker. It didn't feel like a case anymore. It felt like a warning. There were cages in that tunnel, he said to his partner, Officer Leah Barnes. Wires on the floor, a space heater hooked to an old battery, and rope. A lot of it. Barnes shook her head. Jesus, who built that kind of thing out there? Grant didn't answer because the better question was, how many more were there? Meanwhile, the hospital psychiatrist, Dr. Lillian Tate, had been called in for a quiet evaluation. Mid-40s, kind eyes, and the sort of calm that made even the most broken patients feel safe. She pulled a chair up next to Emily's bed, holding a notebook in her lap. Rocky watched her with suspicion, tail low but still. "Hi, Emily," she said softly. "I am Dr. Tate. Do you mind if I talk to you a little?" Emily nodded but didn't speak. "That's okay," Dr. Tate said gently. "We don't have to talk about what happened. I just wanted to ask about Rocky." Emily's gaze flicked down to the dog. Her hand was buried deep in his thick fur. "He's my best friend," she said quietly. "How long have you known him?" Emily didn't answer at first. Then, "He came after the second time. They came back, took the others. I was hiding. Rocky found me in the dark." That sentence hit like a sledgehammer. Tate exchanged a glance with the nurse in the corner. The others. By noon, Child Protective Services arrived. Paperwork, protocol, reassignments. A foster representative came in with a teddy bear and a manila folder, trying to coax Emily into a conversation. She didn't look up, didn't even flinch until they tried to move Rocky. The moment an orderly reached for his collar, Emily screamed, "No! Don't take him. Don't. He protects me." The scream was so raw, so full of terror that even the hardened staff froze. Rocky didn't growl this time. He barked, loud, short, direct. The kind of bark that made every muscle in a person's spine go stiff. Dr. Tate stepped in immediately. "No one touches a dog," she said. "He stays." "But he's not. I said he stays." The foster rep sighed. "We're not equipped to handle a child with a guard dog." Dr. Tate turned slowly. "Then maybe the problem isn't with the child." Later that afternoon, something strange happened. Emily drew on a piece of printer paper with a hospital crayon set in a quiet moment when she believed no one was watching. It wasn't a rainbow or a stick figure family. It was a room, windowless, gray walls, a big door with metal locks, a box in the corner with something scribbled inside, something that looked like a face. And beside it, in crayon black strokes, a figure shaped like a dog, Rocky. But there were other shapes, too. Tiny hands reaching through bars, a person holding what looked like a needle, an X drawn over one child's body. She handed the drawing to Dr. Tate, without speaking. The doctor felt her heart freeze. Down in the basement of the hospital, Officer Grant was meeting with a forensic analyst. We ran DNA from the blanket, the tech said. The girls, of course, but there were traces of others. 3, maybe 4 more kids and 1 adult male. Any matches? Nope. Nothing in the national system. Whoever these kids are, they're ghosts. Grant looked at the lab photos. You said the dog, Rocky. He might have carried them before. The tech shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe he was just the one who got this girl out. Either way, he didn't get them all. Grant clenched his jaw. So, this isn't over. No, the tech said. It's not even close. That evening, a local news team caught wind of the story. A dog, a mystery girl, a rescue no one could explain. The station aired a short segment. Images of Rocky sitting beside Emily, her small hand gripping his fur, a few voiceovers from the hospital staff. Nothing graphic. Just a miracle of it all. The video went viral in less than 2 hours. Thousands of people watched. Some cried. Others shared stories of dogs that had protected them, found them, saved them. And somewhere in a quiet farmhouse 80 miles away, a man with a faded scar above his eye dropped his glass when he saw Rocky's face on the screen. He recognized him. He shouldn't have, but he did. And then he reached for his phone. That same night, as Emily finally drifted into sleep for the first time in 2 days, Rocky lifted his head. He stared toward the door. The hallway beyond was quiet, but something in the air had changed. A scent, a memory, a warning. He got to his feet and growled low and deep. Emily stirred. Rocky, she whispered. The lights flickered once, and Rocky stepped between her and the door, teeth bared, waiting. There was something about the way Rocky stared at the door that night. It wasn't fear. It wasn't alertness. It was memory. He stood there for nearly 5 minutes, head low, nose twitching, then trotted toward the hallway without a sound. His nails clicked lightly against the tile, echoing down the corridor until the shadow swallowed him. Nurse Carla noticed it first during her routine check. She peeked into Emily's room and froze. The bed was still there, Emily still asleep, but the dog was gone. Rocky, she whispered, stepping into the room. Where did you go, boy? Then she saw it. Muddy paw prints leading away from the bed, still wet, not just from the dog, but small ones, smaller, child-sized. But Emily hadn't moved. So who did? Meanwhile, Officer Grant stood in the precinct's evidence room, staring at the photos again. The cage in the tunnel, the blanket, the burn marks on Emily's arms. They didn't just suggest abuse. They suggested conditioning, control, trauma on a calculated schedule. He picked up the phone and dialed the FBI field office in Atlanta. I think this is bigger than we thought, he said. Back at the hospital, Rocky had found something. 3 floors down, through a restricted maintenance wing, past a corridor that hadn't seen janitorial service in years. He stopped at a wall, just a blank, slightly cracked drywall section near an old electrical room. He sniffed, paced, then pawed at a certain part of the baseboard. That's when Carla, who'd followed him this far, noticed the faintest outline of a square, a cutout, a hidden panel. She dropped to her knees, and behind that panel, a child's drawing taped to the inside wall. It wasn't just any drawing. It matched the one Emily had given Dr. Tate exactly. Same room, same door, same strange box in the corner, except this version had names written on the stick figures. Evan, Mia, Charlie, me, and then one name under a cross, Luca. Carla's hands trembled as she pulled the paper free. These are other kids, she whispered. She wasn't the only one. Rocky sat beside her, unmoving, as if he'd known all along. Dr. Tate arrived moments later. She took one look at the drawing and covered her mouth. I think she's trying to tell us what happened, she said. But why here? Carla pointed at the wall. This panel was taped shut, hidden. Rocky found it. Dr. Tate stared at him. How did you know? Rocky tilted his head, then looked back at the panel and barked once, loud, urgent. That bark echoed down the corridor, straight into the ears of Emily, still asleep upstairs. She shot up in bed, eyes wide. Rocky, she whispered. Grant and Barnes arrived at the hospital within the hour. They took one look at the drawing and made a decision. Searched the hospital's old records. Barnes said, flipping through files, there used to be a pediatric psych unit in the sub-basement, closed in '96 after a funding scandal. It was supposed to be sealed. Apparently not sealed well enough, Grant muttered. What are you thinking? I'm thinking someone repurposed it. For what? He looked up at her. You already know. The next day, Emily spoke again. Just one sentence, but it changed everything. They had badges, she said softly, while Rocky laid her feet. Dr. Tate leaned forward. What kind of badges, sweetie? Not police, but almost like science people. And they said no one would find us. Did they say who they work for? Emily shook her head. They only called him Dr. Park. Officer Grant's pen froze mid-note. He looked up at Dr. Tate. You recognize that name? She hesitated. There was a Dr. Malcolm Park, neurobehavioral specialist, used to lecture at Rice University. Left the faculty in 2011 after a scandal involving unapproved clinical trials. Where is he now? No one knows. Grant turned to Barnes. Run everything you can. Find out who this guy is and if he's still practicing. Meanwhile, the drawing had started to circulate online. Someone in forensics leaked it. Soon, internet sleuths began connecting dots. Other missing child reports, foster kids vanished without follow-up, a case from Louisiana, one from West Virginia. All eerily similar. Patterns emerged, names, medical histories, old labs linked to shell companies, a string of closed pediatric care centers across state lines. But the key connection, they all shut down after Anonymous K. 9 alerts were filed. And in almost every case, no one followed up. Until now, that evening, Rocky became restless, pacing the hospital halls, ears perked, occasionally growling at vents or turning sharply at unseen sounds. Officer Barnes followed him out of curiosity. She found him staring at the hospital chapel door. Rocky, she said, what's in there? He didn't bark, didn't move, just growled. She opened the door slowly. Inside, the room looked peaceful. Stained glass, a few folding chairs, a cross on the wall. But then she saw it. An old duffel bag tucked under the front pew. Rocky barked hard. Barnes pulled her weapon, called in backup, and unzipped the bag with gloved hands. Inside were photos, dozens. Emily, the other kids, surveillance images, charts, blood samples, a syringe kit, and a note. Clean the subject before extraction. Do not let her talk. Barnes whispered, What the hell is this? That night, Dr. Tate stayed in Emily's room late. The little girl had finally fallen into a real sleep, clutching her new teddy bear. Rocky curled beside her. Tate sat at the window, reviewing the drawing again. It was more than just memory. It was evidence. And the way Rocky kept sniffing old vents, digging at walls, reacting to specific sounds, wasn't coincidence. He remembered the layout. He'd been there. He hadn't just rescued Emily. He'd escaped with her. At 2:47 a.m., hospital security caught a figure on camera, a man in dark clothes, no badge, entering through the boiler access. He didn't show up on the main entrance logs, but Rocky knew the moment he arrived. He stood up from sleep like a bolt of lightning, growled once, and then bolted from the room. Emily opened her eyes just as he ran. Don't let them take me again, she whispered. It was just past 3 a.m. when the call came through. Security breach, lower access door, West Wing service corridor. Officer Leah Barnes had barely closed her eyes in the staff lounge when the alert buzzed on her phone. She grabbed her jacket and was down the stairs in under a minute, badge out, gun holstered, adrenaline already rushing. At the same time, Rocky was on the move. No lis, no hesitation. The second the camera picked up movement near the boiler access, he bolted, No bark, no warning. It was like something inside him had snapped into place. A scent, a memory, a mission. Emily had whispered, "Don't let them take me again." And Rocky had heard her, and now he was hunting. Barnes reached the stairwell just in time to hear the echo of nails skidding across tile. She followed the sound 2 floors down into the industrial maze of pipes and wires beneath Ridgeway General. "Dispatch, this is Officer Barnes. I'm in the sub-basement. We have an unauthorized person on site. Request backup and send animal control to secure the K9 before he gets hurt." But a part of her knew better. This dog didn't need protection. He was protection in the shadows of the basement. The intruder moved fast. He wore all black, thin-frame surgical gloves, and in his hand, a pressurized syringe, capped and loaded, something fast-acting. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to finish the job. The hallway curved, narrow and dim, old fluorescent bulbs flickering above. He passed the old pediatric psych unit's sealed doors without even looking, heading toward the maintenance exit. But then he stopped because Rocky was standing there, blocking the only way out. Eyes locked. No growl, no bark, just stillness, the kind that lives between breath and explosion. The man took a step back. Rocky advanced. And for the first time, the intruder hesitated. "This dog," he muttered. "It's you." He raised a syringe. That was a mistake. Officer Barnes arrived seconds later to find a man on the floor, face bloodied. Syringe snapped, Rocky standing over him with a snarl curling through his teeth. "Easy," she shouted. "Rocky, stand down." Rocky didn't move. Not until Emily's voice echoed faintly through the stairwell vent. "Rocky, please come back." And just like that, his ears perked. He stepped off the intruder and turned. Mission complete. The man was cuffed, Mirandized, and taken into custody. No ID on him, no wallet, but the tattoos under his gloves, rows of tiny barcode lines along each knuckle, matched photos from an old investigation file. Barnes handed the mug shot to Officer Grant 2 hours later. "This is a guy from the 2013 missing children's case in Memphis. He worked security for a lab run by a dummy nonprofit. When it got shut down, they claimed he died in a fire." Grant nodded grimly. They lied. And now he came back for Emily, which means, Grant said, whoever gave the order is still out there. Back at her room, Emily clutched Rocky like a lifeline. Dr. Tate sat beside her with warm tea and a soft voice. "Can you tell me who that man was?" Emily hesitated. "He took Luca." Dr. Tate felt her stomach tighten. "Was Luca your friend?" Emily nodded. "He was little younger than me. He didn't stop crying, so they said he had to go." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I tried to help him. Rocky did too, but we were too late." The words opened a dam. Over the next few hours, Emily began to speak more than she ever had since arriving. In fits and fragments, she described the rooms, the doctors, the cold food trays, the numbers on the walls. She said they were given codes instead of names. She said there were tests when the lights blinked red. She said one girl disappeared after biting a technician. And she said Rocky came to her cell at night. "He chewed through the lock," she whispered. "He got me out, but they chased us." "How long were you down there?" Dr. Tate asked gently. "I don't know," Emily said. "There were no windows, just screams." At the precinct, digital forensics turned up a lead. The man arrested, known only by the alias Nash, had a burner phone with encrypted messages. Some deleted but partially recovered. One message caught Grant's attention. Subject he recovered. Location compromised. Park wants cleanup. No loose ends. Dr. Malcolm Park. The name again. A phantom of underground experimentation, banned from every major ethics board, suspected in multiple international investigations, but never caught, never seen, until now. By the end of the day, the governor's office had been briefed. A multi-agency task force was being formed, warrants issued, search zones outlined across 3 states. Rocky's name was listed in the report. Unofficially, they were calling him Subject Zero, the one who'd started it all. But to Emily, he was just Rocky, her guardian, her friend, her soldier. That night, news broke nationwide. Former police dog exposes child trafficking operation. Hero K, 9 saves girl from underground lab. The dog who wouldn't let her die. At Ridgeway General, staff gathered around the TV. Jaws slack. Carla wiped tears from her eyes. Dr. Tate stood with her arms folded, proud and stunned. In Emily's room, she and Rocky sat together watching. When her face appeared on the screen, blurred for privacy, she smiled. "That's us," she whispered. Rocky licked her hand. In the following days, tips poured in from around the country. One in particular, an anonymous voicemail left on the tip line, sent chills down Officer Grant's spine. "You think this ends with a girl? You think the dog is a miracle? He's just the beginning. Park is watching and he's not afraid." The line went dead, but the threat lingered. Rocky was temporarily assigned protection status, not kenneled, not caged. He stayed with Officer Barnes in her home on the edge of town. Emily, now officially in protective custody, was allowed supervised visits. The first time she saw him again, she ran straight into his chest and hugged him so hard. Barnes swore she saw the dog's eyes well up. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The woods around Redmore Pines had always felt quiet. Too quiet. That was what locals said when they passed the old property on County Road 12, the place where, 6 months ago, Officer Daniels and his K-9 partner Rocky vanished during a fire. It had burned down what people believed was a long-abandoned farmhouse. Until now. Now the case was wide open again, and the quiet didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt watched. Officer Grant stood at the edge of the property with a tactical team, a drone buzzing overhead, and a search warrant in his coat pocket. Next to him, Officer Barnes held Rocky's leash. But the dog was already pulling forward, nose low, tail stiff, body tense like a coiled spring. "You ready for this?" she asked. Rocky didn't answer. He didn't need to. He surged ahead. They followed him down a ravine behind the burned shell of the house. Most of the land was covered in vines and soot, but Rocky led them straight to a rusted storm drain, hidden beneath a pile of dead branches. One of the techs cleared it with bolt cutters. The tunnel stretched deep, longer than expected. Cold air rushed out like a breath that had been held too long. Grant clicked on his flashlight. "Let's move." Inside, the floor sloped downward. Water dripped from rusted pipes. Graffiti covered the walls, names, dates, and eerie symbols that looked less like art and more like code. Halfway in, they found the first door, heavy steel welded shut, but the hinges had been cut. Recently, Rocky sniffed the frame and let out a low growl. The team breached it with a portable ram. Beyond was a concrete hallway lined with empty rooms, beds bolted to the floor, hooks on the walls, medical trays, dried stains that no one wanted to test right away, and cameras. Broken. But they hadn't imagined any of it. This was real. This was where Emily had been kept. In one of the rooms, Grant found a clipboard, faded, burned around the edges, but still legible. Subject: Emily, E207, age 6, genetic profile, match, response to treatment, non-compliant, transfer order issued. And below that, scrawled in different handwriting, "The dog is interfering again. Eliminate it." Barnes looked over his shoulder. "They were tracking him too," she whispered, "even before the fire." Grant stepped back into the hallway and looked down at Rocky. "You were here," he said quietly. "Weren't you, boy?" Rocky didn't bark. He simply stared into one of the empty rooms and sat down, still, solemn, like someone remembering a funeral. That was all the answer they needed. Back at the hospital, Emily was growing stronger. She spoke more, laughed sometimes, ate her meals without needing someone to remind her. But there were moments, still nights, hallway footsteps, the sound of a door creaking, that pulled her eyes wide open with fear. Dr. Tate sat with her during one of those moments. "Do you know why Rocky went back to that place?" she asked gently. Emily nodded. "He's not done yet," she said. 3 days after the tunnel discovery, the forensics team recovered something chilling. A computer hard drive, half melted but salvageable. It was encrypted, but one folder stood out: subjects. Inside, 143 individual profiles, each with a coded ID, estimated age, Photo, genetic summary, behavioral notes. Only 38 of them were marked released. The others, unresponsive, terminated, or simply erased. Grant couldn't breathe. Barnes stared at the screen, eyes wide. This wasn't just kidnapping, she said. It was experimentation, psychological trials, genetic response testing on kids. And worse. Several files reference a new location, one that hadn't burned. Phase 2 launch site, Galloway Compound. Galloway was a stretch of private land 20 miles north, listed under a holding company with a fake address and no public record. Until now, Grant briefed the task force. This is where Park went. He didn't just run, he upgraded. The structure we found was obsolete, but Galloway, that's still active. We go in, we go hard, and we bring everyone home. And Rocky, he was coming too. Barnes loaded him into the back of her cruiser. You sure about this, partner? Rocky sat tall, ears up, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this. The raid was scheduled for dawn. The convoy moved in silence. 8 vehicles, 2 K9s tactical support. But Rocky rode alone. No muzzle, no vest, just the old tag on his collar that read, K, 9 Unit 412, Rocky. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was the key. As the first rays of light broke over the pine trees, the team breached the outer fence of the Galloway compound. Barbed wire, watchtowers, security cameras, some real, some fake. The building itself looked like a retreat center. Stone walls, a chapel, even a greenhouse. But Rocky ignored it all. He led them straight to a utility door in the side of the chapel. Grant kicked it open. Behind it, stairs, more stairs, and another hidden level. Down below, the walls were clean, white, lit by sterile LEDs, fresh, functional. It didn't look like torture. It looked like a research lab, which somehow was worse. They moved room by room, clearing, calling out, checking cells. And then voices, children crying, singing, alive. Grant radioed in. We found them. I repeat, we found them. In the last room, Rocky stopped. He growled once, then lunged. At the glass inside was a man, lab coat, gray hair, calm as a corpse. Dr. Malcolm Park. Finally, he said, smiling, you made it, dog. They arrested Park without resistance. His files, thousands of them, were archived and backed up. He spoke freely, almost arrogantly, about his research. He never referred to the children by name, just subjects. But when asked why he hadn't left, why he stayed, his answer was simple. I wanted to see if the dog would come back. That night, Emily was reunited with 2 of the children from the lab, Mia and Evan. They recognized each other immediately. They cried, they hugged, they lived. Because of Rocky, they called it the Galloway Miracle. Across news outlets and social media feeds, the headlines came in waves. Not just local stations anymore, but CNN, NBC, national morning shows, even international coverage. Dozens of children rescued from secret lab. Retired K9 exposes human experimentation ring. Rocky the dog saves lives again. But behind the headlines were real names. Mia, Evan, Charlie, and Emily. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were voices, living proof that one dog's refusal to give up could uncover what countless authorities missed. In the weeks after the raid, Emily's world changed forever. She moved into the care of Officer Barnes while her long-term guardianship was finalized. Barnes, who had never had kids of her own, transformed her quiet farmhouse into a place filled with books, laughter, and a backyard where Rocky could run free. Emily called Barnes Aunt Leah by the second week. She slept through the night. She giggled when Rocky snored. And every morning, she fed him a slice of toast, half peanut butter, half bacon grease. The ritual stuck. He earned it, she'd say proudly, watching Rocky lick the plate clean. Dr. Malcolm Park was sentenced without trial. After reviewing the files recovered from the Galloway compound, experiments, victim lists, video logs, federal prosecutors deemed the evidence overwhelming. Park entered a guilty plea in exchange for life in a maximum security facility. He never apologized, never cried. But when asked why he chose children, he gave an answer that chilled every person in the courtroom. They're the future, and futures can be molded. Rocky wasn't in the courtroom, But had he been, the man would have flinched. Back at Ridgeway General, staff gathered for a private ceremony in the hospital chapel. It wasn't formal, no big speeches, just a few chairs, some coffee, and a slideshow of photos that brought more tears than anyone expected. Photos of Rocky carrying Emily through the rain. Rocky beside the gurney. Rocky growling at shadows no one else could see. There was a silence that fell over the room when one nurse whispered, "He saw everything before we did." That line stayed with them. It became something like scripture. 2 months after the rescue, the governor declared April 9th Rocky Day in the state of Georgia. He was awarded the Medal of Valor. In the ceremony, the governor knelt beside the dog and read from a proclamation. In recognition of exceptional bravery, unwavering loyalty, and the unspoken heroism of a guardian who saved lives and demanded nothing in return. The medal was pinned to Rocky's vest. The crowd stood and applauded, but Rocky, he just looked over at Emily, wagged his tail, and laid down at her feet. That was enough. Dr. Tate published an article in the Journal of Child Trauma Recovery about Emily's case. It was titled, "When the Savior Has Four Legs." The abstract closed with a line that was later quoted by therapists nationwide. "Not all healers speak. Some just stay beside you until you're ready to live again." But as time passed, one question lingered. How did Rocky know? How did a dog, once retired, presumed lost, with no handler and no support, find a hidden facility, rescue a girl, and lead the world to uncover a crime so large it spanned 3 states? Grant had his theory. Rocky never forgot, he said. They trained him to find danger, to smell fear. And when Daniels died in that fire, he didn't run away. He ran toward the problem. Barnes agreed. Some dogs retire, she said. But Rocky, he finished what his partner started. In one of the final interviews for a local documentary, Emily sat in a sunlit room with Rocky beside her. The interviewer asked, "If you could say one thing to the people who watch your story, what would it be?" Emily looked into the camera and smiled softly. "Sometimes grown-ups don't believe you, but that's okay because heroes don't always wear badges." She reached down, scratched Rocky behind the ears, and added, "Sometimes they just bark until someone listens." Today, Rocky still lives on a farmhouse with Barnes and Emily. He's older now, slower, but when the wind picks up or a car door slams too hard, he still lifts his head and scans the horizon, just in case. He still sleeps by the door. He still walks Emily to the mailbox every morning. And he still wears his original K-9 badge, worn and scratched, but proud, a reminder that even in retirement, duty never really ends. To everyone who followed this story to the very end, thank you. We know this journey was difficult, emotional, and at times heartbreaking, but it was also a tribute to resilience, to truth, and to the incredible bond between a child and her silent protector. Now, we want to hear from you. If Rocky hadn't barked, would anyone have believed her? And how many other stories are waiting to be uncovered? If only we'd listen to those who can't speak. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And never forget,